You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives. And here is your host, Damon Frank.
And welcome back to the Recovered Life Show, episode 109, Friday, May 13th, 2022. How you doing, Kristina Dennis?
I am doing fabulous, Damon Frank. How are you? You ready for this spooky day?
I am. It's freaky. It's May 13th, Friday the 13th. And, I didn't realize it, honestly, until late last night. I was like, it is Friday the 13th. Everything bad is supposed to happen today.
Supposedly. I don't believe that, but yes. I noticed it this morning. That's how out of touch I was. So you're ahead of the game.
Well, I will tell you, I don't believe that. But we do, just as a little pun, we are going to kind of organize the first part of the show around Friday the 13th. Look, anybody who is new to recovery or has been in recovery for a while has had those Friday the 13th days where everything goes wrong. Like, right? I'm telling you, like, you can't wake up and get out of bed without stubbing your toe.
Exactly. We'll get into it in a few minutes, but I have some theories on why that is around this day specifically.
Good. Kristina Dennis is actually the most lucky person in the world, and nothing bad ever happens to her.
Exactly.
But she's going to participate in this conversation anyway, which shows her spirit. And willingness to participate.
That's huge pressure. Before we get into it, though, I want to let everybody know this show's being brought to you by Recovered Life contributors and people like you. Please like, share, follow, and leave us a comment so that we can keep bringing interesting discussions. Also visit info.recoveredlife.us. You can leave a donation and join the network and become part of the Recovered Life family. That's info.recoveredlife.us.
Thank you so much, Kristina Dennis. That was so great for you to mention that. We love it when people become part of the community. And I'm just going to give a little teaser here. Guys, if you are not a member of the Recovered Life community, go now and make that happen, right? Because we've got a lot of really great stuff coming up, and the value for it being free, totally free, is amazing. And people not only are enjoying it, but what we have coming up here in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you definitely want to be a part of that. So definitely head over to recoveredlife.us and make that happen for yourself if you haven't done so already. And I'm sure that when people do head over there, Kristina, that they'll find a pile of money in the street. And that everything will be good because Friday the 13th.
Right? Turn that up, attract something different. So tell me, what do you think about Friday the 13th? You said you didn't believe in it.
Well, no, here's the thing. Honestly, I am kind of superstitious. I thought about this. Yeah, I thought about this and I said, does superstition play a role in my recovery at all? Like, let's talk about sobriety and superstition. And at first glance, I know we're talking about, you're like, well, what does that have to do with it? Right. But it really does. The more we were talking about it, we realized that, like, the sober superstitions and magical thinking in sobriety is really most of early sobriety and getting sober, right? A lot of
sure is. It sure is. I was trying to remember back to, the early days. And I remember like exactly some of the things that you were told to do, some of the warnings that came out. And I mean, because I heeded them, I wanted my sobriety so badly, and I didn't ignore them. And I do believe that those actions, like never turning down a request, those kinds of things, like you just don't do it. If you don't want to go, you go, no matter what. I think they were important. They were powerful actions that I took. So I agree.
12 steps has a lot of superstitions in it.
Sure does.
About like never show up a minute late to a meeting. Now, a lot of these are just being polite. Right. I'm going to tell you, a lot of these are just like courtesy. That we've kind of lost. And, when this all went down with 12 step, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, when it was really kind of making it happen, right? Those kind of courtesies were much more prevalent than in today's society. You realize how different it is. Like when you read the big book or something like that, you realize how different society is. It's the same and different all at the same time.
So true. And like I said, those are foundations that helped me get and be part of the fold, make me really start to rely on my 12-step family. But I also, and as everybody knows, has gone into like codependency recovery very early into my recovery. And so sometimes those would, kind of confuse me, like never turn down a request, but also have some boundaries. It took discussion. It really did. It really did.
Well,
What were some of
both are true. Both are
Yes.
true. Like in early recovery, not turning down a request is probably a good idea for 90% of the people. But for
True.
10% of the people, they're in there because they won't turn down requests, right?
Exactly.
So you're right. There is this yin and yang. But what I wanted to kind of dive into here are these sober superstitions about sobriety. Okay.
Yes.
And just about, and also getting sober. And I want to throw out a couple of here, like about drinking and somebody might be listening to this now and they're thinking, I'm kind of sober curious. I think I might be an alcoholic or drug addict or codependent or something like that, but I'm not quite sure. Right. Yeah. I will tell you what's running through most people's head because, you and I have been there. Right. And we work with people that do that. Is some of the superstitions is that my drinking will be under control if I can just get that thing, that people, place, or thing, right? And a lot of it is relationships. If I could just fix this relationship, everything is going to be fine with my drinking.
Absolutely. It's their fault. Or if I have a different job, I won't drink like I do. And I like the one where, if I have a period of abstinence from alcohol, then I'll be able to come back and have a drink occasionally. And I mean, we've said this before, if you're able to do that, then you're probably not an alcoholic. Because if you are an alcoholic and you've already established that relationship with alcohol, it's going to be there waiting. I mean, let's talk about that. One of the things that we get told, and I don't know if it's a superstition or reality, I don't want to test it, is that even during the periods of not drinking, your disease is over there doing push-ups, waiting.
Yeah.
Do you believe that?
I think let's talk about that. And look, Kristina Dennis and I are not doctors and we're not diagnosing anyone. And obviously, addiction is a very serious life-threatening disease. So if you believe that you have it and you feel that you need a diagnosis, go to somebody who could do that. We deal with people who day to day that actually want to get sober. They're on their path, but they might be struggling. Right.
Right.
And the thing is, Kristina, that's interesting about this is the big superstition that you talked about is that I'm able to drink like my fellows. Yes. I think, I'm just going to put it into a sentence like that is a huge lie. And, look, if you're new to a 12-step program or therapy or a group or coaching, you're going to you're going to wonder, it's like, I wonder if they're buying this,
right.
No, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. I just need to get on the straight and narrow.
Yes.
And then I'm going to be able to enjoy and control my drinking. This is the big lie and superstition of recovery.
It so is. And when we were talking before the show, we were talking about all the trappings that we believe if they're just under control. Like you brought up relationships. Money is another one. If I just get that right job, and if I get this influx of cash, if there's something shows up that I can change things, I won't need to drink like I drank before. So therefore I won't. And that is magical thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like this being healthy, right? This whole being healthy thing. That's another, the gym rat thing.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how many people I said, you know what? I'm actually not going to pursue getting sober. I'm just going to go to the gym more.
Right.
And if I can get that next body weight BMI measurement, or if I can do that next thing, then it's going to be fine. I'm no longer going to be an alcoholic.
Well, and I mean, make no mistake, exercise does help. We actually did a segment about how exercise is being brought into rehab facilities, and they're testing, the statistics about how much it helps people remain sober, but it does not cure your drinking. And I've seen that before where I used to be an alcoholic, but now I'm a gym junkie, and it's still avoiding, the truth. It's still escaping in a different way, and it needs to be watched.
Well, look, we could do a whole other segment about the other side of superstitions, which is magical thinking. And I threw
Yes.
in magical thinking in there because I got to tell you, as a high performance recovery coach, dealing with people, trying to get them from point A to point Z,
Mm-hmm.
and when I say that high performance, for some people is they just want to get out of bed in the morning and they want to get through the day sober,
Right.
right? And then they want to pursue something in life, right?
Yes.
Other people that might be, we're running a marathon, we're the chairman of the board, whatever that is, right? So
Right.
it's different for different people. But I am going to tell you this: magical thinking runs rampant
Mm-hmm.
with people in recovery. And it's very tough because as a high performance coach, a lot of times, Christina, when you and I work with people together, a
Yes.
lot of the times my role is to just say, it's like, you got to push yourself a little bit more.
Right.
Like
Right.
I'm going to make you accountable to push yourself a little bit more. And the thing is that what I notice about this is that there is a difference between magical thinking and playing full out
Gotcha.
and
Well,
stretching, right? I mean,
yeah,
don't you think? Because I know I've heard you
absolutely.
talk with clients a lot about that.
Absolutely. And magical thinking sometimes, to me looks like I'm going to, it's like that law of attraction stuff. Like if I just say these affirmations every day, somehow I will, be in that home, that dream home. If I say, I am a millionaire, that's going to just increase my bank account. And that is not true. I know in some of our recovered life discussions, we've talked about the fact that affirmations don't work if your brain doesn't have a plan and attach, and especially if your brain knows it's magical thinking, like that's not going to happen. And you and I talked about like, what is the difference between execution and magical thinking? We need to be able to set big goals. We need to have, the conception and the reality of describing, imagining a big, beautiful life. But
Yes.
we also need next steps and need to ask those hard questions of ourselves. How am I going to get there? What do I have to do next? And a lot of times people will say, I got sober and, nothing changed. Well, they just put down drinking. They didn't actually make the changes. It's work.
Well, look, this comes right down to the nitty gritty that a lot of people don't want to say in recovery coaching, right? That it is execution
Mm-hmm.
that actually is the big game changer. You could know everything about
Right.
being sober. You could be able to know everything that 12 step has to offer, therapy has to offer. Look, I know doctors and lawyers and
Right.
judges and very high profile people, celebrities that are in recovery. Their success in the outside world did it hurt them, to be honest with you,
Mhm,
to get sober a
mhm.
lot of times because they think that they know that how to do it. And that's a superstition. It's like, well, I know how to do this. When
Right.
clearly we don't a lot of the times know how to do it, right? We don't know how to live life sober. So I
No,
think that the key is that execution is this big demarcation line, right?
gotcha.
The
Uh-huh.
You can know, like, look, I mean, I hear this a lot. I remember when I first got sober, I was in my 20s. Things were just an absolute mess, right? And me as an entrepreneur now, as a coach, as a business person, I have a
Got it
lot of stuff
together.
going on. I have a
Yep.
lot of responsibilities, right? With high profile people. And the thing is that I couldn't get there if I couldn't cut the check for rent,
Right.
if I couldn't pay my bills on time, if I could. And look, when I first came into recovery, that did not happen. Right. But
Mm,
I had this, I'm going to live this life. I'm going to live, which I think having vision is important. But it really came down to me. The big shift for me was when I woke up and made my bed in the morning.
yep.
That was a shift because it wasn't thinking about having this wonderful life. It was actually starting to take actions to sustain a life so that I could create something bigger.
You're so, so right. And the willingness to be present to your current circumstances and to reach out, work with a coach, work with a therapist, say, okay, I keep doing these behaviors. I know where I want to go. I finally have an idea of what I want. I realize alcohol is not getting me there. It's taking me away. Now, what are the next steps that I have to take? And, having accountability is so important, not only to determine the next steps. I remember people saying, well, if you could do X, Y, and Z, why didn't you do X, Y, and Z? Right? If I
Right.
could be married to somebody better, in my partner's relationships when I work with people, and some people will say, well, I deserve more. And so my question, as harsh as it might sound, would be like, well, then why don't you have it?
Yeah,
And
well,
that's
this is
magical
magical
thinking.
thinking. Yeah,
Yes.
this is, and look, we have I'm much more in the Hollywood area, and you're
Yes.
in the OC. But look, if you have done any time in the rooms of any 12-step program here, or had any kind of fellowship here, you have the person who's sitting in the back of the 12-step
Mhm.
meeting, saying that they've got this film that they're going to be producing,
Yes.
and they've got
Yes.
this next hot script, but have not taken action. I could go back now,
Mhm.
10 years later, and they're still sitting in the back of the room talking about this thing that they
Right.
want to do, not taking any action. Right. And this is the key. Like, I talk about this a lot, is that one of the reasons I got into this is because I saw so many people sitting in the back of the
Mhm.
room, not living their best recovered life. They were stuck in, and they were bitter because the magical thinking didn't work.
Right.
They got some of the superstitions that they thought, like the
Mhm.
relationship, the car, the job, the house, and they're friggin' miserable.
Yes. Yes, yes. It's like going to, someone telling me, "Well, I go to meetings every day," but they don't sit up front, they don't raise their hand, they don't take the action to connect with somebody else, and they're curious about why they're lonely, and saying, "Well, that doesn't work. This didn't work. I did what people told me to do." And not really, and I think having, the self-awareness is really important. And it takes us away from magical thinking. Like I said, if you could be the president of your company, why aren't you the president of your company? Why aren't you there? What do you have to do the very next day to start that? And I love that you brought up making your bed, because that was some of the good superstitions that helped me build a discipline, a foundation of discipline that helped me get to, a really beautiful recovered life.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? And some of this is self-esteem too. We were just
Mhm.
talking about earlier, and what I love about the show, Christina, is that, we've got TGIF Sober, the next thing, where we talk about our week in recovery, right?
Right.
Because it's not just about these imaginary people
Right.
that are staying sober or trying to get sober, right? Like, no, that's us. Like,
Mhm.
we're actually doing the deal. Like I always say in business, we're eating our own dog food, right? Like,
Yeah.
I love these these companies. The perfect example is, you say we're all about about customer service, but yet they send you to some foreign country that does
Mhm.
not speak your language to try to help you out. You can never reach anybody. You can't,
Right.
and if you do talk to somebody, they don't want to talk to you. They have a bad attitude. They're not about people.
No.
That's magical thinking right there. So the difference with this, we're actually doing it. So, like,
Yes.
this same thing happens to us. We were just talking about this an hour ago, Christina, about how it's like, I was like, oh man, I made that bad move. And I think I made that bad move because of programming I had
Right.
through being a little codependent on some things. It's like, I made that move, and that was kind of magical thinking in the wrong way, that I didn't
Right.
deserve to really have this. And this is the person, Christina, that's sitting next to the guy who wants to get that script done but's never taking action. This is the person
Yes.
who they're taking actions, but their self-esteem is such, either through codependency or just getting beat down in life or dysfunction, that they're just they just don't believe that they have the worth to have that life.
So true. And I really believe that when you identify as an addict, there is so much around that needs to be addressed. In interventions, a lot of times it'll be a younger person. And what you see is it's all about that person and their problem, and they don't actually treat the source. And that's the family dynamic. Something needs to be fixed. This person isn't just an island who showed up and, oh, that's a bad apple. There's stuff going on.
Yeah, well, that's like where you hear a lot of stuff. Look, we hear this in groups as trauma dumping.
Mm-hmm.
where people come in and they just trauma dump, but
Yeah.
there's no solution, there's no action, there's no recovery. It's
Yes.
just talk. And, we talk about this a lot, that there is even in coaching, like we've seen this in coaching, and it bothers me. I would say it's a
Mm-hmm.
character defect probably, but it really riles me up when some groups are really just all about trauma dumping
Yes.
and there's
And
no solution there.
mm-hmm.
And the people running them are trying to encourage the trauma dumping so they don't really have to give value, right?
Right.
Like, and so you're sitting there, you're going like, there's no recovery here. Now, I'm not saying expressing that you've had a bad day or that you feel that everything sucks and that the world sucks and that you don't know how you're going to get through the next couple of hours. I'm not saying that doesn't have value. I'm saying
Yes.
that if you're stuck there, you know what I mean? That's a problem.
It is. It is. And I think the phrase that you're looking for is trauma bonding, and that does
There you
not
go.
help
Okay.
anybody. That does not help anybody. So absolutely, you got to look around in your world and look at the people you're surrounding yourself with and see, do they have a solution? Not that they have to be there already, but are they intent on moving forward and actually getting out of magical thinking and taking the right next step?
And I love that. Kristina Dennis, final thoughts on magical thinking, sober superstitions. If somebody's listening to this and they feel that they're caught, they are trapped into, oh my gosh, I do believe all these superstitions and magical thinking. What would be your recommendation to get out of that?
Oh, get somebody to help you. That's really invest in yourself. Get somebody to help you. Check the 5 people around you and see where they are. Are they going the same place that you want to go, or are they content with sitting on their laurels and being unhappy?
Yeah. And I think, for me, one of the things that I would say is that, sit down with a notepad and start
Mm,
jotting some stuff down and start thinking what you think about yourself and what you think you're going to do. And then on the other column, I just have people write down what they're actually doing.
yes.
And
Oh,
you're going to
good.
find out that most of the things that I've realized as a coach is, Kristina, is that most people spend time thinking.
Yes.
They don't spend time doing. We're chronic, alcoholics and people in recovery are addictive thinkers. We'll just
Right.
think ourselves to death. We'll just
Yes.
think ourselves to death and take no action at all. So if the left-hand column is 5 pages long and the right-hand column of what are you actually doing is 2 sentences, then maybe you need to kind of address that.
Yes.
That's my final thought.
Agreed. Agreed. Such a good thought.
Well, we have much more show coming up, Kristina. So I did want to mention before we move on, we've got a lot of stuff going on in the Recovered Life community. One of the ways that you can help us is like, share, and follow this. You guys, I just have to tell you, just one like, a share, and follow in the YouTube world and the Facebook world and the Twitter world, it really helps us. It allows people to know, like, hey, you know what? This has value. And if this does have value for you, we're just going to ask one simple question. It's great if you can donate. It's great if you could do that to help us get the word out there. But what's even more important for us is that you share this with a friend.
Yes.
And the best way to do that is to send them to recoveredlife.us to join the Recovered Life community and hook up with somebody like Kristina Dennis, who's out there who can really help you make a move in the right direction. Kristina, coming back from this very, 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 very short break, we've got I know it's your favorite segment of the
It
week,
is.
TGIFSober.
Yes, it is. Stay
Okay,
tuned.
here we go. Coming back in just 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Recovered Life Show.
Welcome back to Spooky Friday the 13th. Before we jump into TGIF Friday, I want to remind everybody that this show is being brought to you by Recovered Life contributors and people like you, like Damon just mentioned. Make sure to like, share, follow, leave us a comment so we can bring interesting topics to the show. Visit info.recoveredlife.us, join that network, which is completely free, and leave us a donation that allows us to keep helping others. That's info.recoveredlife.us.
Well, I got to tell you, Kristina, one of the things that just was on my to-do list here, I've got a huge to-do list for the week. I've got it
No
sitting
kidding.
here. Yeah, my right column, by the way, which we were talking about, which is a to-do list of what I'm actually doing, is bigger than my left-hand column.
Yay.
So I know that I'm actually doing it right. But on my to-do list is I'm going to have a jingle done for TGIF Sober, because this is my favorite segment of the week, just like you, because we're not just talking about what's going on in other people's recovery or what other experts think about recovery. We're talking about what's going on in our recovery, what we did, what happened in
Yes.
the community. And it's always an exciting time. So why don't you kick it off, Christina? I know we started Monday with a really great room that I host, all about setting up your sober week.
Yes, it was such a beautiful, beautiful discussion. And, when we start off our Mondays with the right intention, it's not just a moment, it's actually saying out loud, making that commitment to yourself. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I plan to do to grow, to learn new information, to move forward. It is so helpful. I really look forward to the Monday morning discussion because it sets me like, oh gosh, that's right. My life can't just happen. I have to be intentional about going after those things that I want, never staying still. I heard 3 to stay, 4 to grow. I remember that was one of those statements that was brought to me. And it really, really helped me. And I always launch it on Mondays with our Recovered Life family.
Well, you're not going to wake up suddenly, spontaneously, and start playing big. And
Right.
if you do, you're not going to get anywhere, right? Like,
No.
and this is the thing with people in recovery. A lot of times we're chasing our tail, right?
Yes.
Because we can't really wrap our minds around how to actually execute it. I think having this, one of the things with the Recovered Life discussion with creating your sober weekly game plan, which has
Hmm.
been so great about it, is that it puts me on kind of notice in a really weird way early in the week.
Yes.
And one of the things I got was like, oh yeah, I made a commitment to exercising a little bit more. I made a
Right.
commitment to calming down a little bit and connecting spiritually a little bit more. Because, like I felt like this last month, I've been so busy with life
Hmm.
that I'm packing so much in the stream of life that I've kind of lost my disconnection a little bit. Right. And I
Right.
needed to kind of spend a little time. I wanted to have a little bit of fun and work on my garden because I'm a garden nerd. Right. I had
Yes.
some business stuff I want to do. So it's just like, and how does that relate to my recovery? I think just like putting this all down and just talking about it and hearing what other people have to say about what they're committing to this week it makes it worthwhile.
It does, and it takes out, any kind of thinking that we're gonna spontaneously connect to our higher power or to others. Really, we have to schedule it. And as you beautifully said, that includes joyful action, that includes spiritual hobbies. That's the term that I use because connecting with ourselves, connecting with what makes life good, catching those moments, taking them in is actually a cognitive process. And I think a lot of us in the world, not just in recovery, kind of think, well, that should just happen. Like if I do the stuff that I will naturally do that in between work. I haven't found that to be the truth. Like we have
Yeah.
to intentionally schedule times of breaks. I focus a lot on the nervous system. And so one of my commitments to myself was to take 4 to 5 breaks throughout the day to ground myself, to, shut down the computer and step away. And that room really helps me.
Oh, one of the things that I've been doing this week is I committed to, I don't like the gym. I don't like having, like,
No.
we've got 18 Stairmasters here, a bicycle, like
Uh-huh.
I've got one in the living room, right? Which always becomes a coat rack with my
Yes.
family. I don't know what it is. It's an expensive coat rack with pedals.
Yes, of course.
And I use it every once in a while, but you know what? The weather's been great here. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go out and I'm going to walk 3 times a day. And last night I remember sitting there and it was
Mhm.
dark and I was just like, oh, I didn't do it 3 times a day. I skipped it because I had a call and I didn't make myself a priority. So I'm like,
Right.
I'm going to go back out now. Right. And
Right.
I went out and I actually did it. Right. And I felt so much better because I kind of have achieved that. Right.
Yes.
I'm doing something for myself. And I think one of the things with TGIF Sober that I love is that when I go back through my week, I realize that, like, wow, you know what? At the very beginning, I had to take time to carve out a recovery plan. What am I
Yes.
working on? Do I have a resentment? Do I have an amends? What do I have that I have to work on?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that is important for me this week, not to win at, but to just be aware of.
Yes, yes, esteemable acts. When I was out there drinking, I missed deadlines. I missed showing up. I was too hungover. I missed ever scheduling something for my own behalf, ever parenting myself. That was a concept I didn't even understand. And one of the commitments that I have is learning something new every week. And it doesn't have to just be recovery literature. So Tuesday, in our Recover Life discussion called Rewire Your Brain, we actually take time for an hour to think about these concepts and to put our mind toward, things that maybe just don't show up. And this week we talked about an ethic of love versus lovelessness. And it was such a beautiful discussion. It really put me in the right frame of mind to cultivate love, not to assume that it's going to come. And we've been studying the book Atlas of the Heart from Dr. Brene Brown, who happens to be in recovery and just announced she celebrated 25 years. Congratulations. And she was talking about the word love. And it was so interesting. She said that there are actually researchers in this field that don't believe love is an emotion. And she
Really?
laughed when she shared it, because that's how, she's a grounded theory researcher, which means that the participants decide what the hypothesis is, not a researcher or somebody who's ahead of a study. But then she quickly shared that there is a data out there that shows when they took thousands of undergrads and they told them, we want you to rate whether something is an emotion or isn't. So 0 to 4, 4 being this is absolutely an emotion, and 0 being no, this isn't one. And love was 3.94. And the closest one to it was hate. And so I think as a general consensus, we understand that, yes, love is an action, but it's also an emotion. And in 12 steps, you will hear feelings aren't facts. And I agree with that to some degree. But I love that when we start paying attention to what the feeling is, it'll give us information. And so being oriented toward love, how can you show others love? How can you show yourself love? Is, always going to be something that benefits my recovery.
I really like that room. I listened to that on the replay, and it was great. It was very deep,
Mm-hmm.
And what I loved about that was what the community had to say.
Yes.
When you went over this data, and when you started reading the chapters, right, like how they had a hard time communicating
Yes.
love, but they felt love, but they had a hard time communicating that. And I think that was really beautiful. And where people go with this topic wasn't where I thought.
Never is.
It's interesting. It's interesting. And and I think when you have people that are in recovery, I think that topic is even more important,
It
because I
is.
think a lot of the times, we talk about the emotion wheel. A lot of the times we're trying to figure out what emotion we're actually having, especially in early sobriety. We might
Absolutely.
feel uncomfortable, but we're actually resentful, or we
Yes.
might feel this way, but we're actually hungry or whatever, right?
Yes.
So the emotions are kind of all over the place in early recovery. And you could hear people that were in early recovery kind of stumble with this a little bit, feel these immense emotions, and people that had more sobriety felt the feeling, but had a harder time communicating it. It was really interesting.
Yes. Yes. I believe wholeheartedly that the fear of feeling is much worse than the actual feeling.
Oh,
When somebody's ready to sit down and actually feel the grief, it's the fear that keeps us behaving in an addictive manner, that keeps us disassociated from our body, that keeps us running. And, you can run in sobriety as much as you can when you are drinking alcoholically. You can detach. And so just having this idea that that's actually the goal of life. I sure as heck didn't feel lovable when I first got here. I really didn't. And it took many years, even into double-digit sobriety, where I actually started feeling like I was lovable. I remember there was this affirmation that people would share it during that time. I am capable and lovable. And I knew that I was capable. right? I had accomplished things, but I really didn't know I was lovable. And one of the definitions for Brene Brown's team is that you can only love to the degree that you love yourself. And I'm like, ooh, because I was thinking that I was
Perfect.
loving other people, but I wasn't.
Yeah, perfect. What's the big takeaway? Because I know that you've been doing this topic for a couple weeks now. What's the big takeaway that you've gotten from her research and
Well,
discussing this with the community?
that is so important to have language around those emotions. It's incredibly important because defining them helps inform how we're going to live through them and what we need to do next. It doesn't mean over identification. We don't want people setting up throw pillows in their grief, but it does mean giving the correct amount of time to have the feeling with the safe people around you so that it can come through you and go out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting as we dive more into that topic in the next coming weeks. I think it's going to be great because so many people are getting stuff out of that.
Yes.
Speaking about topics, and we talked about being uncomfortable with certain topics, creating healthy boundaries. The
Yes.
discussion that we have on Wednesday. Talk about that because I want to share with you old school, my long-term sobriety men's group. That was the topic, creating healthy boundaries last Saturday.
Really?
And
Well,
it was very interesting.
it was so I had shared a little story about how I had received a direct message from somebody that said, not everybody has a fear of rejection. I think you're just projecting on us. And I was only, I think it was from the Rewire Your Brain room. So I was actually just transmuting information. It wasn't even a personal thought. But to be honest, I really do believe that we have an extreme fear of rejection. It's biological. To be rejected, thousands of years ago would mean that you died. So I do believe that almost everyone has a fear of rejection. And what I shared was how interesting that the codependency and the fear shows up. And I did what I tell other people to do and what we do at the Recovered Life. I shared about it. I took the shame out of it by saying, wow, I had all these feelings and thoughts show up when I got this random message from a stranger. And, and it was literally like I could, flip through a catalog. The first one is, oh my gosh, is that how I come off? The second one was, what a jerk, really? Seems like you're really afraid of rejection, and I had all these options of how I could reply and shoot a text back and say, come on, what are you doing? Thanks for coming, but you don't have to come anymore. And so I was really honest about the fact that I had those reactions. And because we had just done the love list, the code of love, the ethics of love, I recognized, okay, I need to approach this with love. How can I love this person? And they gave me a true gift because I had these reactions, but I was able to share them with people. I had some healing, other people had some healing, and I recognized that this is a daily deal. Like we have to become spiritually fit. We cannot change the world around us. There will always be people who hear something that you possibly weren't trying to say. And how you react to that, it's like, I don't shame myself for having those feelings. I just observe them and realize they're not going to make the decision.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that with rejection, a lot of the work with accountability that I do with people is like, okay, showing up, taking action, you're going to get rejection.
Yes.
It's weird because I had just to share a little thing with you, what I thought about when I was in that discussion was that when my past career set me up where I would do a lot of calls, a lot of sales calls, and a lot of high pressure kind of negotiation stuff. And 99% of it is rejection.
Yes.
I mean, it's like literally 99%. And, and I remember going through this training where I just droned it out of me, like literally NLP'd it out of me, so that when I got rejected, I would get a dopamine hit.
Gotcha.
I would feel excited. So when somebody rejected me, I would feel excited.
And why is that? Because you knew something good was coming?
I would double down. And that's why I was very successful at it, because I doubled down. The rejection didn't faze me. I just keep going. And what happened is, like, became very successful at that. And I
Yes.
use that today. So a lot of times when I hear rejection, I get happy because
Gotcha.
that's one thing left, right? So a lot of it is interpretation that I
Right.
find. It's like, and I was talking that I received a rejection too that same day on something. And me, I rarely get, like, I laugh
No.
when people reject. I'm like, okay,
Right.
check that. I can now go on to the next thing, or that's the objection. I go, I don't care. I'm crazy that way. I
Right.
don't really care. Right. But this one bugged me because I felt that they were rejecting who I was as a
Goodness.
person,
Yes.
not what I was doing. Right. And
Yes.
this was the thing that I was like, wow, okay, I got to look at that, because that is weird. Like, why am I having, and it was and they weren't even mean about it. They were just, the way they said it was like, I thought it was kind of a done deal. And I was like, and then I had the thing, this kind of weird code about, well, I'm actually helping them out, but I wasn't really, it
Okay.
was just a simple thing. But it's so interesting because this feeling came, and it was shocking to me because I typically don't have that.
Right.
I've really worked on that so much that I don't take it personal when people reject me. Matter of fact, take the opposite. It's like,
Yes.
dude, they're living their life. That's their thing. That works for them.
Right.
Maybe they're not looking at it this way. Maybe they are, and this just isn't for them. But this one got me, and I had this feeling, and I had to actually sit for a second. I was in the car. I was like, why am I having this feeling? I don't
Yes.
even care about this.
Right.
Why am I having this feeling? And it was, for me, this comes down to this underlining thing that most alcoholics in recovery have, is they realize that they have a deep relationship with shame.
Yes.
That shame is floating down, not what they think you are, but who they think you are.
Yes.
Or what you're doing, but who you think you are, right? Deep down inside.
Exactly.
And it had hit on that in a really weird way. And I was like, this is ridiculous. It has nothing to do with this.
Right.
But it's interesting that even after, almost 3 decades, Kristina, I could still have that. It shows how powerful this really can be.
It is so powerful. And when that happened to me, and I was, sharing it with the group, and everybody was really supportive, sharing that, they too have this, and this has happened in their life. I started thinking about the lovelessness term that we discussed in Rewire Your Brain. And lovelessness is the ability, what happens, it's the void of love. It's not hate, it's the void of love. And it was, lovelessness occurs when we don't stand up for things that we believe in, right? So
Yes.
and so the fact that you were having a reaction because you believe in working together, you believe in making connections. For me, the fact that I had a reaction shows me that I am working out of love, right? And it felt like this person was rejecting me. And yes, and it felt like that. So it kind of helped me go around and say, well, it's okay that I'm sensitive. I don't think it's possible to be in a world where you aren't afraid of rejection. And I don't think that people, that we talk about that as much as we should.
Well, this was what we talked about in the Unstuck room real quick.
Really?
Is that about accountability, about why you're not doing what you say you're going to do, right? And so here's the thing. I agree with you. But here's where we take here's where I take a little turn on that. I think you're human. Of course, you're going to feel these feelings. That's what we do. And alcoholics are even going to misinterpret these. Okay. So we have to be very careful about what it means. But just because you're afraid doesn't mean you shouldn't take the action. Just because somebody criticizes you doesn't mean that you shouldn't do what you're doing. And
So
this is, it's the interpretation of it. We then make these decisions that are not based in reality at all. It is like, going back to the last segment, it's magical thinking based on interpretations that have nothing to do with what's really going on.
We do learn that in recovery, that other people's expectations are not our business. Other people's opinions of us are not our business. But for me, that doesn't mean that I don't react sometimes. And so I allow myself to react. I could say, wow, the reason why this hurts is because I care a lot about the work I'm doing. and then get to a point where it's okay if that person felt something they didn't want to feel. Look at the gift they brought me, right? Look at,
Absolutely.
we're still talking about it today. And based on people's reactions in the community that weighed in, it's not a Christy thing. It's an everything.
No.
It's an
Well,
everybody
that's a
thing.
great thing about the Recovered Life community, Kristina. And just to end the TGIF Sober segment on that is that the community is what gives you the feedback. And when you have a
Yes,
great community like Recovered Life, who are people that are really doing the deal, like if you're in a community and they're not doing the deal and
right.
they're what we call trauma dumping, they're just coming in
Yes,
and dumping all this crap and then there's no solution. What's going to happen is you're going to just be a victim to that, right? So
right.
the key is to get, whether it's Recovered Life or another community that you feel good in, get into that recovery
Hmm.
community and really participate and share and listen to what other people have to say and use other people's experiences. Look, this has been for me, I have to tell you, there were some struggles this week, but
Hmm.
this was a great week in recovery for me. And it's
It
not over
really,
of the
yeah,
weekend.
it's not over. I hope everybody has and cultivates that joy and schedules loving actions towards yourself, and also, seek self-awareness, connect with somebody. This is why we get sober, to live these big, beautiful lives, and that includes challenge. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, what
Thank
a
you so
great,
much. And great. It's gonna everybody have a great weekend. I do
yes,
want to mention, guys, if you want to be part of these Recovered Life discussions, head over to recoveredlife.us, become a member. We're going to notify you of everything going on. We have tons of discussions a week, and you can jump in and participate in them.
beautiful. All right.
Episode 109, Kristina Dennis, Friday, May 13th, 2022, in the can. We'll see you on Monday.
Mwah.
Keep the conversation going. Join Recovered Life, a community of like-minded people who are looking to live their best recovered lives. Membership is free, and you can apply at recoveredlife.us.